Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Parvez Khan. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Kuhar University of Science and Technology. The subject is National and International Affairs. The course code is JMC 341. It's our lecture number 13, which is global warming. So before we start our session, we'll be talking about the objectives. What are the objectives of today's session? Students will be able to understand the concept of global warming, what the global warming is. They will be able to understand what factors contribute to it, and they will also be able to grasp an understanding of the threat it poses to our future lives. And along with that, they will also be having a strong command of understanding alternate measures in dealing with this global issue. So this is what we are pretty much going to discuss: the factors that contribute to global warming, what is the overall concept of global warming, and the threat it poses to our future lives and the present circumstances in the world that we are living in. So before we begin, let's consider that one of the key facts that we must know is that the Earth temperature is rising, and there is also a downside to technological industrial advancement, which also has contributed to global warming. And an important question that comes to our mind is that, is there a way out? Now, as you can see in the coming picture, that there's greenery and there's a barren land, but it clearly identifies two separate worlds. One is peaceful green world, the other is barren land. This is symbolic picture which reflects climate change. So we'll be talking about the concept of global warming first. What is global warming? It actually refers to the rise in Earth temperature, and it indicates that it's a term used to explain the increase in Earth temperature since industrial period where temperature started to be recorded. So basically, the concept of global warming uh, came into much more development since the equipments for recording temperatures, equipments for recording temperatures came into existence. And over the last 1 century, the temperature is being recorded, and we can see that since the early 19th century, we can see that the temperatures were rising. The earlier 20th century, in fact, the temperatures were rising, and the comparisons were made. So over the last 1 century, we have seen the gradual rise in the temperature, and also indicates that there has been shift in the temperatures around the world. So yes, it's about more about the temperature. It's about the rising temperature. It's about the heat that the global warming refers to. So yes, this is the basic concept that we can talk about the global warming, but it basically rise to the rise in average Earth temperature. And another explanation for this can be that it is an refers to the average increase in the temperature of the atmosphere near the Earth's surface and troposphere, which obviously contributes in global climate patterns. We see that the patterns are changing. Some of the colder regions are witnessing a lot of heat waves now, and similarly, there have been melting glaciers. Even the summers, the timings of summers or prolongation or the early winters, that have also shifted a lot. So we can say that yes, if the Earth temperature increases and it causes global climate patterns, that is also a kind of global warming. And basically, before going into further details, we must discuss the what causes global warming. And one of the contributing factors is that when carbon dioxide gases, methane, air pollutants, and greenhouse gases collect in the atmosphere and absorb sunlight and solar radiation, they have to bounce off the Earth's surface. But we have seen that they don't bounce off. We see that they remain stuck. And if these pollutants, which can be stuck for there for years and centuries, they trap heat and get the planet to get hotter. So this is what's known as the greenhouse effect. So in order to understand what global warming is, it's better to understand what the greenhouse effect is. Basically, these pollutants which get stuck in the air, it works like a greenhouse effect where they have no way out to go, and the pollutants get stuck in the air, which increases the Earth's temperature. But let's talk about the contributing factors to the global warming. It's the modern lifestyle that we're witnessing these days. The modern lifestyle is contributing strongly because if we have a lot of dependency on technology. We use all kinds of equipments the air conditioners, the transportations, the industrialization, and obviously the second factor is heavy industrialization that causes a lot of carbon emissions. We have seen that the 21st century witnessed a huge influx of industries everywhere. We've seen developments and we've seen progress, but it has come at a cost because it has also contributed to carbon dioxide emissions and the strong, powerful gases such as chlorofluorocarbons, which and the air pollutants. We have seen that the air conditioners and all kinds of technology which are not energy efficient, that is causing an increase in temperature. But most of all, the fossil fuels that produces carbon dioxide gases is one of the leading factors as well, because we've seen that the population has increased. Similarly, transportation has increased, and the number of cars, the numbers of trains, and all kinds of the transportation used by people is emitting gases that is contributing to the environment, that is causing a lot of damage. And along with that, we've seen that since urbanization is taking place, people are moving to cities. There's a lot of development happening in cities, and new places are being built. That there's a lot of use of furnitures, and we have all used developments and the offices. All kinds of equipments are being used. So deforestation is also a large contributor, which contributes to the excess of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And lastly, once again, we are talking about the greenhouse effect. What is the greenhouse effect? We've already discussed, but let's explain that what greenhouse effect is. Let me explain it in detail. That is a process that occurs when gases in the Earth's atmosphere trap the sun's heat, and this process makes the Earth much warmer than it would be without an atmosphere. So basically, it's about a layer formed on the surface of the Earth where the energy, the heat bounces back to the surface, but it doesn't get out, and it gets stuck, and the temperature rises. So this is just like you have seen nurseries where the plants are grown. They put the green sheet where the plants are growing, and the heat gets trapped so that the flowers blossoms early. That's the basic concept of greenhouse effect. And currently, because of these gases, the greenhouse effect, the Earth is getting warmer than it would be. Now let me show you one picture about this is an iconic picture. You can see that the glaciers are melting, and this is a polar bear which is sitting on a small ice that's just about going to melt. And this is an iconic picture from National Geographic which shows global warming, that the glaciers are melting and is forcing these animals to survive, as it's getting difficult for them to survive in different habitat. So this is one of the indications or signs of the global warming that we're seeing. Now, what has global warming cost us in the recent years? Let's see. Let's get to some statistics first. That the levels in the atmospheres are that the highest levels, carbon dioxide levels, are highest recorded in about 650,000 years. This indicates that this is the highest recorded carbon dioxide levels in the air, never seen before, and how much damage it's causing to the environment, to the world, to the situation around us. And similarly, the global Earth temperature is up by 1.9 degrees Fahrenheit, which is more or less 3.4 degrees Celsius. So since 1880. So like in 140 years, 3.4 Celsius centigrade, the temperature of the Earth has risen up. And it may seem a small number, but it has devastating effects because it indicates that the Earth is much more warmer than it was in 1880. And after industrialization and developments and the progress that the world has made, this shows the price that we're paying now. And similarly, the Arctic, the minimum expense of Arctic summer sea has declined by 12.85% per decade. So you can see that the Arctic, the oceans and the glaciers are melting. The land ice has also declined by 413 gigatons a year since 2002. And another damaging factor is that the global sea level has risen by 7 inches in the past century. It's 176 millimeters, and it shows that the sea levels are rising, which is causing floodings and all kinds of problems. But let's talk about the effects in detail. What kind of effects it's having on our world today? These figures may seem very small, but even a slight variation in the Earth's temperature can be devastating. It has long-lasting effects. It is forcing people and the environment and the animals and plants living to a to a very difficult position. Now let's discuss the effects it's causing. Like what are the effects of global warming? What are the serious devastating effects? And one of the serious effects and that has caused a lot of damage is the melting glaciers, which is obviously contributing to higher sea levels and acidic oceans, which is making life difficult for aquatic animals and plants as well. But it's also causing a lot of animals to move from the habitat, and it's causing a lot of problems because melting glaciers has an effect on the other regions, which is causing a lot of problems. And the second problem is the early snow melt and severe droughts will cause more dramatic water shortages and the increase of wildfires. Sometimes, because of heat, we can see that the wildfires are taking place. Excessive heat is causing fire in the forests, which is hard for countries to manage. And even the early snow melt can cause water shortages, and that can be a problem in some regions because in some places it can cause severe drought and it can be problematic. And similarly, forests, farms, and cities uh, can also face pest, heat waves, heavy downpours, and obviously increased flooding. So if there's a snow melt or the glaciers are melting, it can cause excessive flooding, which is why we recently hear a lot of flooding taking place in different places. Suddenly we can see heat waves, suddenly we see floodings. These are all signs of climatic changes, and it's having at a very rapid pace. And all those factors will damage or destroy agriculture and fisheries. Obviously, there's a lot of investment being done in these regions, and the countries are spending a lot of money in agriculture and fisheries. But we can see that sometimes the heat waves, excessive floodings, or downpours, and obviously, suddenly, if there's a seasons for crop or wheat, and we see and witness a lot of rain, it can damage the crop. It can cause a lot of damage to the farmers. So obviously, we've witnessed in recent decade or so, we've seen climatic changes. We've seen that the winters getting shorter, summer getting extended, and these are some of the signs that sometimes it rains without warnings, and there's been floodings and droughts. So yes, these are the signs and effects of global warming that we're seeing. And obviously, there's disruption of habitats, which also drive away many plant and animal species to extinction. We've seen there are certain animals that are being extinct because the habitat is getting finished because of sometimes due to urbanization, sometimes due to heat waves, sometimes due to lack of protection. Even many aquatic animals are getting extinct because they're getting stuck in plastic bags and all kind of environmental hazards that are killing animal species to extinction. And and this also brings us to another important discussion of the allergies and asthmas and the infectious diseases and pollen producing different problems that are associated with the air pollution. And this is also because that it is the conditions are favorable to pathogens and mosquitoes that can spread diseases. So yes, these are some of the serious effects like melting glaciers, early snow melts, that's increasing rise in temperatures, and also the rise in sea levels, and also causing wildfires in the forest, and similarly affecting the agriculture and fisheries, the disruption of habitats that's forcing many animals and plants to extinction. Along with this, it's very important to discuss the responsibility by the heavily industrialized nations such as America and China, which are the largest emitters of carbon dioxide gases. But obviously, we are going to discuss that in our next session. We'll be discussing the how to contribute towards the betterment of the environment, how we can make the world greener, how sustainable energies or renewable energies can contribute to it. But currently, we know that the fossil fuels and the carbon dioxide gases, methane gases, all are contributing towards the greenhouse effect, which is increasing the Earth temperature. And the Earth temperature has risen by 3.4 degrees Celsius nearly in the last 140 years. So these are some alarming signs that need to be discussed. There's a lot to be talk about global warming and especially the responsibility of world leadership and all that. So yes, now we come towards about the entire summary and what did we learn from this session, what was discussed, what were the key points. So let's wind it up in our final discussion right now. Let's come towards our final discussion. And so, what did we learn? So, the first thing that we learned in this discussion was that the Earth's temperature is rising. As you can see, temperatures around the world have been unpredictable. The temperatures have been rising, and even the average Earth temperature around the world has risen. So it explains that how much changes are occurring over a period of time. Then we know that carbon dioxide gases, methane, chlorofluorocarbons, and other gases can trap the air, and it can be a leading source of global warming. So we discussed that these gases can increase the temperature, it can trap the earth heat, it can create problems in the earth's stratosphere, atmosphere, and the environment in general, and which is why it works as a greenhouse effect, and many gases get trapped, which is why the earth temperature keep rising. And it's an issue that's often under discussed, but it's a critical issue that confronts our world today, and it's mainly because of gases. And that's why there's more and more discussion on green gases, or what do you say, environmental friendly items, environmental friendly cars, so that there can be less and less emission of these gases. And then the next point that we discussed was that there are unexpected environmental changes, and which has caused the extinction of animals and habitat. And we have seen that many birds species that once used to be a prominent identity of any locality or habitat, they're moving towards extinction. So many species have just disappeared from the face of the earth. It's causing not just only environmental challenges, but it's also affecting the life on this planet through different species, animals, plants, and all these things. So it's becoming unexpected because many we have seen migration. Places which were hotter have become cold, and places which are colder are moving towards hotter tendency, which is forcing even the migration of birds, animals, and all these kinds. And because of rapid urbanization, the natural environment for these species have also been eliminated. So this what happens is that these poses environmental and existential challenges for future. This is a key point that the unexpected environmental changes is the leading cause of the future challenges, and we can say that it poses environmental and existential challenges for future. So this is pretty much it. Then we have the need for eco-friendly world with green technology. We discussed it in this session. That's much more eco-friendly, environmental-friendly technology is needed, and lifestyles need to be adopted. Energy-saving, energy-efficient devices needs to be installed so that the situation can be controlled to a certain extent. And it creates a hope that if lesser energy is consumed, if people adopt to a certain lifestyle, it can certainly bring the situation towards betterment. And lastly, we have also discussed the need for the world leadership to step up on the issue, to intervene, because the problem is coming from the leading industrial nations. Problem is coming from the countries who are dominating this world. They have taken less and lesser interest, and we have seen that young activists now are coming forward and they're urging world leaders to step up. And so, yes, so there's a need for world leadership to step up on the issue. This is our last point of discussions. And then we have questions from the students. You can think about what do you think about global warming, how it's caused, what are the leading factors. And importantly, whenever we are attempting questions, we have to see it in the perspective from Pakistan's perspective. How do you see the global warming in the context of Pakistan? That's very important. We have to see the environmental changes happening, the urbanization taking place in Pakistan, the rapid growth of industries. This is important to look into Pakistani environment as well, because if we are to talk about world only, we have to focus more on our own region as well. And apart from this, do you think it's affecting us in what ways? Have you seen any figures? Have you measured the atmosphere, the cleanliness of the air in your city, in your area? So these are all the questions that you can think about. Science and your personal observations, they matter a lot. So you have to look into global warming in this perspective as well. So these are some of the references that we've used. I hope you enjoyed the session. We'll be in touch. Thank you very much for attending this session.